Now, let's talk football. We've talked an awful lot of football this week, but we make no excuse for carrying on that conversation. With the Women's Euros over, talk has turned to what is next for the women's game in this country as it develops and doesn't want to simply replicate the men's game. Many options are being discussed and considered. One club which often gets mentioned when looking at alternative ways of running a football club is Lewes FC, a football club in East Sussex. It gained national attention back in 2017 when it became the first club in the world to pay its men and women equally. It hasn't been smooth sailing, and there are still questions even now about its financial viability. But one of those who championed its move to gender equality is Karen de Bray. She's even written a book about it. It's called Pitch Invasion: My Story as a Feminist on a Football Club Board. And I'm delighted to say Karen joins us. Julia, welcome.
Thank you, Claire. I'm delighted to be here.
It's a fantastic story, and I love the book. You start off with a position that many of our listeners may be in, although maybe the Lionesses have changed a few minds. You were dragged along to Wembley in 1994 with your then boyfriend, now husband, Charlie, and you thought, football, not for me. Why?
Because I really actively disliked football. I thought it was just a male domain with nothing of interest. In fact, I thought football was a threatening place for me to be because I was brought up in Neasden near Wembley and I couldn't get on the tube, if there were lots of football fans. And I'd been to a match when I was 14 and I'd felt almost harassed in the crowds. And on TV, on the back of newspapers, all I saw was men playing football. And in my playground at school, all the boys played football, not the girls. So I just tried to ignore football. And it was just annoying to me when it was always on the telly on a Saturday afternoon because, Charlie was watching it.
And that experience there at Wembley specifically, how did it feel? Nothing about it made you think, I really need to find out more about this.
No, not at all. I didn't know the rules of the game. I was looking at these guys on a green oblong pitch, running after a ball. I didn't know why. It's just, and everyone around me was a man and drinking beer. And I don't like to be around men necessarily in big groups when they've had a lot to drink and are shouting.
Yeah. So what changed? You moved out of London, didn't you? You moved to Lewes with your two children. How did you get this epiphany of, hang on a minute, I need to find out about this. And also now I need to get involved and change it.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned my husband, Charlie. He had become a director at Lewes Football Club where we lived, which didn't surprise me because the first thing he does when we go anywhere is go and watch a football match. And in 2016, he said to me, what would you say if I said we were going to pay the women the same as the men down at Lewes FC? And I was like really gobsmacked because I said, what? You mean there are women there playing football? I didn't know that. I just thought it was men. And then I thought, a second thought, what, there are women there playing football and you don't pay them the same as the men? Like, what's going on in football that this industry can be so openly sexist and you would become the first club in the world to pay them the same? Like, that's shameful. I mean, brilliant, yeah, but shameful. So they did it. They became the first club and they called the campaign Equality FC and made international headlines. So I thought I'd better go down and watch a women's match. So I went on my own and I just thought it would be a threatening place. It would be boring, all the things I thought about football. And it absolutely wasn't. I just had a cup of tea. It was quite friendly. People were chatting. Weren't many people there. Didn't feel like one of a million and squashed. And there were these amazing young women on the pitch being aggressive and powerful and strong and doing things that women just don't normally do in public. And I just, as a woman myself, even though at the time I was like 49 and about to go into my menopause, I immediately saw them as role models. And I just thought, I want to be like them. And I want my daughter, who was 17 at the time, to see these women. And then I thought, why aren't there more people here? And because I didn't know that I could have gone and watched a women's football match. So maybe there were other people that didn't know that this was a possibility.
So you rolled your sleeves up, you got involved, you ended up sitting on the board there at Lewes FC. There was, in the section in the book, there's a very illuminating early board meeting involving a kettle. Tell us about that.
So I first of all, I volunteered for a couple of years and went to tell what I call now unwelcome women about Lewes FC and that they should come in solidarity with the cause for gender equality, even if they didn't like football, because if they were counted at the gate, that would be an answer to the critics of equality who said that the women didn't deserve to be paid the same as the men because they didn't get the same gate figures. Right, so I did that, and eventually I got so involved that I got elected onto the board, and my friends laughed me under the table. They were like, "What? You're a director on a football club board? What's going on?" So, basically, I brought my whole self to the board, and that means everything I am. So I'd been in fashion, I'd been in counselling and therapy, and I'd never been in an industry that was so male-dominated. So when I got to my first board meeting, no one had a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. They were all men, by the way. And there was a kettle and there were tea bags and everything. So my natural inclination was to go and get a cup of tea and say to everybody else, anyone want a cup of tea? And of course, I then took orders for everyone's hot drinks. And I missed the first 10 minutes of the board meeting. It was like, yeah, I'll have a coffee with no sugar. Yeah, can you make me a tea? But leave that tea bag in a long time and all that. And I thought, what am I doing? I'm the only woman here and I'm making tea for all these men. And it's no one's fault. It's all of our conditioning. They didn't think to say, oh, I'll make my own cup of tea, or do you want a coffee? I think it because I've been trained all my life by my mother, who anyone that comes in the front door, it's, do you want a cup of tea and a sandwich? Let me make it for you, you know.
Well, good job you didn't offer that, Karen.
Well, I would have. I probably would have
the first half hour.
I know, exactly. So I had a lot of learning to do to sort of uncondition myself and be more like them in a way, and also offer them the ideas of, you know, things that I knew about that they didn't, like what mansplaining was or manspreading or all these things that maybe they weren't normally thinking about. But, you know, if you're a club that's concerned with gender equality, these are the things you need to talk about in a boardroom.
It's interesting because you talk about how, fundamentally you wanted to make space for women and bring them in and bring them up to equal pay and equal investment off the pitch as well, whether you are publicising the matches or you're investing in physiotherapy. But also, there's very much the thought that doing this, raising equality, helps men too. Exactly the kind of men you're talking about in that room. How?
Well, I think, for one thing, it opens conversations. But two, like, for example, because of all the work we did on the women's side at Lewis, we had access to grants that were for women's football that the men wouldn't have had access to. And we got a £750,000 state-of-the-art hybrid pitch there, which the men were very, very happy about. I don't mind telling you, because it used to freeze, you know, in the corner and all that kind of thing. Now it doesn't, so we don't call matches off. And we say, we've got a big slogan on one of our pitch boards that says, equality is a rising tide that lifts all boats. And it really has been for us. I mean, equality has meant a massive buzz around the club, more sponsors, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of sponsorships because of Equality FC and Leading with Gender Equality, sponsors that want to align with us. We're talking higher match day revenues because of so many more people coming to the matches, both men's and women's, because not only did the women's gate quadruple in 2 seasons, but the men's rose too, you know?
So that's the practical follow-through of that. But also I was kind of getting at, you know, changing male perceptions of women and how that can improve their lives.
Yeah.
What did you see at the club?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really, really important, isn't it? The way that we see who we see as sporting heroes, you know, who we give fame and fortune to, because those are the people that we look up to. And therefore, I think football has a massive role to play in the way we value women generally, more generally in the wider world. So we found that we did an independent survey of our fans in 2022, and 73% of fans of our men's team said that they thought about gender equality more than they did 5 years previously when we'd introduced gender equality to football now. So they were thinking about it more, they were having more conversations about it, and we found that, like, lots more men were bringing their daughters and their sons to women's matches. So our gender breakdown, you know, our women's matches is about 50-50. And lots more men coming to watch women's football who were a bit turned off of the, you know, occasional toxic masculinity that can be attracted to men's matches, especially at higher levels.
I just want to put this to you because the recent history of the club has been a challenging one. I know you're no longer involved on the level you were, but there had been talks of potential investment by a group targeting women's football clubs. Mercury 13, people may have heard of it, supported by fans. It didn't go ahead due to concern that this would jeopardise the club's commitment to both the men's and the women's side. And in May this year, Lewis FC said it faced a number of financial challenges after its women's team was relegated from the women's Championship, that is the second tier of English women's football. Do you think that push for equality has backfired? Many people say it might have done.
No, I really don't think it has. I think reports that say it has done are entirely inaccurate, actually, partly for the reasons that I've just told you. Also, I know that we've been very noisy about having an equal FA Cup prize, for example, and that has gone up for women, the total prize fund from to 6 million. And I know we've had a part in the wider, the better running football better so that it includes women as well. And I think the club, as we always knew when we started to talk about equality in 2017, that the more we did for women in football, the more we would hasten the growth of the game more widely, and the door would shut for us to get promoted.
OK, well, listen, we've got a statement from Lewes FC now, and they say, like all football clubs, it's a business that suffers from cash flow challenges. And that's what it is down to, and nothing else. Karen, thank you so much for joining us. Karen Debray, Pitch Invasion, the book is out now. Thanks for joining us. That was Woman's Hour.